Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images. And the website for the latest news, views and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health.
Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from New York City. I'm Susan Tehrani. First, let's take a look at this hour's latest headlines. Chinese President Xi Jinping holds talks with France's Macron and EU chief von der Leyen in a trilateral meeting in Beijing. Von der Leyen warns China arms to Russia would significantly harm relations. China says it will work to foster security and stability between West Asian countries. This after top Iranian and Saudi diplomats met in Beijing for talks. Israel claims it intercepted a rocket fired from Lebanon into Israeli territory. The rocket attacks came amid clashes at Jerusalem's Al-Aqsa Mosque and warnings of retaliation in the region. France urges respect for status quo at holy sites in Jerusalem. expressed concern over the violence of the last 2 nights. Israeli police in riot gear had stormed the prayer hall to dislodge agitators who had barricaded themselves inside. And club legend Frank Lampard is back at Stamford Bridge. The Blues have appointed the 44-year-old as their interim manager until the end of the season. French President Emmanuel Macron is on a 3-day visit to China, along with EU chief Ursula von der Leyen. The European leaders are trying to persuade China to use its influence over Russia to bring peace in Ukraine. Shortly after a high-level meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron, the two leaders made a joint declaration. The leaders called for Russia-Ukraine peace talks, quote, as soon as possible. They also made clear that the two countries are opposed to the use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine.
尽快重启和谈，按照联合国宪章宗旨和原则，兼顾各方合理安全关切，寻求政治解决，构建均衡、有效、可持续的欧洲安全框架。
La deuxième chose, vous venez de rappeler avec beaucoup de force le sérieux, l'esprit de responsabilité qu'imposent les questions nucléaires. Et la volonté que la France partage, qu'évidemment le nucléaire soit exclu totalement de ce conflit, qu'il y ait le respect de l'ensemble des traités internationaux en la matière, et qu'en aucun cas il ne puisse y avoir de déploiement d'armes nucléaires en dehors du territoire des États dotés, en particulier en Europe. Et à cet égard, chacun doit être rappelé à ses devoirs, en particulier la Russie qui a annoncé il y a quelques jours vouloir déployer en Biélorussie de telles armes, ce qui est non conforme aux engagements pris à votre égard, à notre égard et au droit international.
EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen joined the two presidents shortly after.
Another shaking hand, please.
Earlier in the day, Macron met with the Chinese Premier Li Qiang and National Assembly Chairperson Zhao Leji at the Great Hall of the People. Macron, accompanied by EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, hopes to smoothen ties with Beijing. The French president, who arrived in Beijing yesterday, emphasized on how Europe must resist reducing trade and diplomatic ties with Beijing, which is at odds with the West over issues including Taiwan and China's close ties with Russia. Well, for more on this, we are joined by Professor Andrew MacLeod. He's joining us from Liberia. Dr. MacLeod is a visiting professor of war studies at King's College in London. Professor, thank you so much for joining us on WION. An interesting visit by Emmanuel Macron, his first visit to China since 2019, accompanied by the EU chief. What do you make of this? Light at the end of the tunnel?
What are we seeing now is the world is moving from the unipolar world after the end of the Cold War, with only the United States mattering, to now a multipolar world in which China is beginning to assert its influence. Certainly China can assert a lot of influence in Russia. Seen recently, China negotiated peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which is probably one of the most significant diplomatic coups that China has pulled off since it started to assert its muscle on the international stage. So we might be able to start seeing a stabilization of the Ukraine conflict. I don't think we're going to see a peace agreement by any stretch. But what this is a very strong warning to the West that China is now going to be heard. And there'll be a question for India is how does India balance itself in this new multipolar world? Does it go on the side of the West because it's joined the Quad? Does it go on the side of China because it's part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? Or does India try to carve out its own third pole? So we might get some sort of stability coming out of Ukraine, or at least a prevention of the nuclear weapons. But this is China really asserting its diplomatic might on the world stage now.
That's very true indeed. I want to ask you about this recent visit by the Taiwanese president to the United States. It's been dubbed as a transit visit by the United States, mostly because perhaps they didn't want to call it an official trip by the Taiwanese leader. Where do you stand on this? Do you think the United States is walking a diplomatic tightrope, or will it ultimately, or is it trying to buy time to ultimately change its policies towards China and Taiwan?
I think a bit of both. I mean, for the last 70 odd years, the United States has had the policy of strategic ambiguity, that is, not being clear on Taiwan, even though on the State Department website you see the statement very clearly. The United States does not support the independence of Taiwan. The United States does support the status quo. But of course, the status quo is very confusing. UN Resolution 2758 in 1971 changed the government of China from Taiwan to Beijing, but did not change the borders of China. So the borders of China that existed immediately before 1971, that included the mainland and Taiwan, still exist today. And the Taiwanese constitution still says in its own constitution that it is the government of all of China, i.e. there is one integral territory. And 58% of people on the island of Taiwan has said that they don't believe the United States policy is in Taiwan's best interest, it's in the United States' best interest. I think what you're seeing starting to evolve, and this is truly scary, a polarization between China and the United States in which Taiwan could be the flint that sparks a major war. But the reason for the war won't be the independence of Taiwan. It will be a cultural clash between the democratic individualist-faced West versus the non-democratic collectivist Asia.
Professor, thank you so much for joining us on WION, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon.
The two big meetings the world is watching. Macron and von der Leyen hold talks with Xi Jinping. Putin meets Lukashenko amid rhetoric of nuclear deployment and calls for ceasefire. Will China's peace plan provide a blueprint to end the war in Ukraine? The big story on WION.
Despite dire warnings from China, Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen met with U.S. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy in California. With this, McCarthy has become one of the most senior U.S. officials to meet a Taiwanese leader on U.S. soil since 1979. China is, on the other hand, condemned the meeting. It has also increased military activity around Taiwan. Standing alongside McCarthy, Tsai said that it's no secret that today the peace they have maintained and the democracy which they have worked hard to build is facing unprecedented challenges.
Their presence and unwavering support reassure the people of Taiwan that we are not isolated and we are not alone. However, it is no secret that today, the peace that we have maintained and the democracy which have worked hard to build are facing unprecedented challenges.
Calling Taiwan a great friend of America, McCarthy emphasized on how the friendship between the people of Taiwan and America is a matter of profound importance to the free world. He also had a message for China.
Message to China, there's no need for retaliation. But the one thing I would say to China, too, at no time, I am the Speaker of the House. There's no place that China is going to tell me and where I can go or who I can speak to, whether you be foe or whether you be friend.
China has condemned the latest meeting. The Chinese Foreign Ministry has issued a statement which reads, quote, "In response to the serious, erroneous act of collusion between the United States and Taiwan, China will take resolute and effective measures to safeguard national sovereignty and territorial integrity," end of quote. The Chinese Foreign Ministry asserted on how Tsai's visit to the U.S. gravely violated the One China principle, further emphasizing on how U.S. officials are giving Tsai a platform to make separatist remarks seeking Taiwan's independence. Taiwan's defense ministry says 1 Chinese aircraft and 3 warships have been detected around the self-ruled island. China's Fujian Maritime Safety Administration has also launched a 3-day special joint patrol and inspection operation in the central and northern parts of the Taiwan Strait. Taiwan's transport ministry has lodged a strong protest with China about the move and has notified relevant shipping operations that if they encounter such requests from China, they should refuse them and immediately notify Taiwan's Coast Guard to render assistance. Washington has meanwhile urged China to show restraint regarding the Tsai-McCarthy meeting.
So our channels of communications are open, and we have had a consistent message that has urged restraint. And in recent days, we have conveyed directly to the Chinese at high levels that escalation is uncalled for. And so we'll continue to keep those channels of conversations open.
The U.S. acknowledges a one China policy, which Beijing lays claim to Taiwan, but it does not endorse China's claim to the island and remains Taiwan's key provider of military and defense assistance.
To America that we're seeing at our south.
Another Hindu temple has been vandalized in Canada. The latest incident took place in Canada's Windsor, where the temple was vandalized with anti-India graffiti. The Windsor Police Service has opened an investigation into the incident. India has condemned the incident. The Indian Foreign Ministry said the matter has been taken up with Canadian authorities. Canadian authorities, meanwhile, have called the vandalism a hate-motivated incident, and the hunt for the 2 suspects continue. According to Windsor Police, the statement was released. Police personnel were sent to the temple on April 5th after a report of vandalism. During the investigation, police officers obtained a video that showed 2 suspects in the area just after 12 a.m. local time. One suspect appears to vandalize the wall of the building while the other continues to watch. This is the second incident of its kind in Canada in the last 4 months alone. Back in February, another temple, Canada's Mississauga, was vandalized with anti-India graffiti. In January, a Hindu temple in Brampton was vandalized, triggering outrage among the Indian community as well. A Chinese peer-reviewed research on the origins of COVID says animal DNA was found in the original sample from Wuhan, from where the virus originated. It also states, however, that there is no definitive proof that COVID originated from an animal and spilled over to humans. It's been over 3 years since the world went into lockdown due to COVID-19. Still, the question as to how the virus emerged remains shrouded in mystery. A team of scientists from the WHO flew to Wuhan in early 2021 to investigate the source of the pandemic. After 12 days, they said the theory that COVID-19 originated in a lab and spread from there was, quote, extremely unlikely. The theory that COVID originated in a lab in China's Wuhan province has been dismissed many times. That theory recently, however, made a comeback in February 2023 when Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, said the Bureau believes COVID-19, quote, most likely originated in a Chinese government-controlled lab. China's foreign ministry spokesperson accused the U.S. intelligence agencies of politicizing the probe into the origins of the virus. Less than a month after U.S. President Joe Biden signed a bill declassifying information related to the origins of COVID-19, he said he shared the U.S. Congress's goal of releasing as much information as possible about the origins of COVID-19. However, within 2 weeks, the Chinese peer-reviewed research was published in Nature. It suggests that it was possible for an animal to have been an intermediate host of the virus that spilled over to infect humans. But the latest finding still does not prove that COVID originated from an animal and then spilled over to humans. This means the theory that COVID-19 originated in a lab is yet to be completely disapproved. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., descendant of one of America's most famous political families is running for president. The 69-year-old Democrat filed a statement for candidacy with the Federal Election Commission. With this, a challenge to U.S. President Joe Biden has emerged from within his own party. Biden himself has not yet formally announced his candidacy for a second term, and his approval ratings have nonetheless declined in recent months. Robert Kennedy is the nephew of former President John F. Kennedy and the son of his brother, Robert F. Kennedy. He's a best-selling author and environmental lawyer. But Kennedy's campaign for a Democratic nomination to the White House is being viewed as a long shot by many. Last month, Kennedy said on Twitter that he was considering running for the top position. Self-help author Marianne Williamson is also running in the Democratic race. After becoming the first country to make Bitcoin a legal tender, El Salvador is set to drop all taxes on tech innovations to boost its economy. The country's president is an ambitious man. After leading the country to adopt Bitcoin as a currency, he now wants El Salvador to become a tech innovative hub and plans to do it by generously eliminating taxes on income, property, and capital gains on firms working on innovative tech solutions. He took to Twitter last month to announce the plan. This comes when big tech firms are vigorously scrambling to lower costs, including massive layoffs. But the race in tech innovation has not slowed down. If anything, the competition to outdo each other has run up a few notches as well. Software programming, coding, app development, artificial intelligence known as AI, computing and communication, and hardware manufacturing are likely to benefit from the new proposed law. The new proposal is in line with Nayib Bukele's vision of making El Salvador not only a crypto hub, but a leader of major tech innovation. Bukele's vision was first formulated in Digital Agenda 2022-2030 document. His aim for the digital transformation of the country, the vision document, was instrumental in El Salvador adopting Bitcoin in September 2021 and issuing Bitcoin-backed bonds called, quote, volcano bonds. The Bitcoin experiment backfired somewhat last year as the crypto's value fell significantly. But the crypto token is back with a bang this year, up over 70%. Bitcoin returns have outpaced every major asset class in the first quarter this year. Taking you to the world of sports, at the NBA, the Milwaukee Bucks have secured the top seed in the Eastern Conference after a convincing win over the Chicago Bulls. 2021 champion Bucks were without a star, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and also lost Chris Middleton early on due to a knee injury. Chicago, who will be competing in the play-in tournament next week, began strong and held a 10-point lead in the second quarter. But the hosts rode on a superb third quarter to turn the game on its head. Milwaukee went on a 15-0 run during that period and never let the Bulls get a sniff after that. Bobby Portis, who started in place of Kunpo, had 27 points and 13 rebounds, while center Brook Lopez contributed 26 points. The Bucks eventually competed a 105-92-point win. The top seeding means that they will have home court advantage in 4 of the 7 games throughout the playoffs. Meanwhile, the Denver Nuggets have sealed the top seed in the Western Conference for the first time in franchise history. The New Orleans Pelicans beat Memphis in overtime to end the Grizzlies' hope of knocking Denver off the top spot. The designs of late designer Virgil Abloh continue to command attention at auction houses. Sotheby's auction house is selling 8 pairs of the Nike Dunk Low Virgil Abloh Futura Laboratories, with proceeds going to Virgil Abloh Foundation and choice of charity. Making its debut during Off-White Spring/Summer 2021 in Paris, the collaboration is one of sneakerheads' best bets and one that have had their eyes on for a very long time. Sotheby's head of streetwear and modern collectibles spoke of the cultural importance of the sneakers and the value they hold today. Virgil Abloh was an American fashion designer and entrepreneur, one of the most influential and respected fashion designers of his generation. He began his own luxury line, streetwear clothing, Pyrex. He passed away in November 2021 at the age of 41. The sale online has already begun and will go on till April 14th, with bidding starting at only $1, with estimates set between $2,000 and $4,000. Thank you so much for staying with us and watching live from New York. I'm Susan Tehrani. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, same place, but don't go away. More news and headlines are coming up next, only on WION The World is One.
There are many other
WION.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at YoOne.com